Man, type in Final Fantasy 14 and just nothing but Asmongold videos. Okay, how about this one? The Final Fantasy 14 community versus Quin69.
For those who don't know, Quin69 is a streamer from New Zealand, and he decided that on the 14th that Final Fantasy 14 is just not the game for him.
Uh-huh.
In a Twitter post, he stated the reasons for his dislike of the game, listing the lore, quote-unquote weeb aesthetics, slow clunky gameplay, a lack of RPG mechanics and character customization, and non-existent PvP as the reason. It wasn't all negative, however, as he followed up with some of the things he enjoyed, such as the world feeling alive, diversity in environments, the soundtrack, and most importantly to the scope of this video, the community. While some of his reasons for disliking the game seem a little strange, particularly the RPG mechanics and character customization, which I think many could argue that this game has plenty of, for the most part, it seemed like a reasonable take, and it was cool that he even gave the game a shot, even though it wasn't really for him. What immediately
At surface
followed
level, yeah.
that was a slew of toxicity from many of the fans who found his critiques of the game to be offensive and inaccurate. The dogpiling Quinn was a stark contrast to the glowing praise I gave the Final Fantasy XIV community in a video I released almost 2 weeks ago, where I said that the community is the least toxic community I've experienced, and that toxicity didn't fester very long. What I failed to realize was that outside of the game, these people also use Twitter and will find any reason to justify piling on someone who voices a dislike for their favorite MMO.
Okay, so for this point in particular, I made a video on this a while ago too, but yeah, it's true. I was one of those people that was tired of like newcomers saying that they're that the community is super nice, but what people don't see is that the reason why people are nice in game is because GMs are very, very harsh with their rules. Like they enforce their rules very, very well. So you will never really see heavy toxicity inside the game. But when you're outside the game, it's all gloves are off, because that's where people like Reddit, Twitch, Twitter is where people will go to vent their frustrations because they can't do it inside the game. The 14 community isn't really that special. Everyone here is still human. Like they're the same people as they would be in like StarCraft 2, League of Legends, WoW, Star Wars, any other fandom really. The only difference is that Square Enix actually heavily polices in game and sometimes off game too. They've also banned streamers for being quote unquote toxic or being harsh to people, like when they're actually streaming, as in like people will actually report them or report what they say on stream, and they actually would get banned in game, which is actually fucking insane in my opinion, but that's how it is. But yeah, basically this guy's bubble has been bursted. Obviously with the Quinn situation, there is much more to it than what he's saying right now, but we'll see where the rest of this goes.
One of the reasons Asmongold was very vocal against playing Final Fantasy XIV to begin with was the negative reactions that streamers like himself receive from highly invested players who disagree with the opinions they have about the game from an outsider's perspective. What it finally took for Asmongold to try the game was Bellular and Preach speaking highly of it. Two well-respected WoW players who took the time to try the game and voice their thoughts were able to convince Asmongold to try the game simply by creating videos about it. It's easy to believe, if you hop in game and quest around the world and join dungeon groups, that the entire community is a wonderful utopia in the middle of a world that is crumbling around you.
Uh-huh.
Sure, there are a few people in the game that you can live without, particularly those with Burger King crowns in the North America data centers, as I'm told through many of your comments that the EU experience in Novice Network is a drastic difference from what we experience in the NA. Sure, you'll have a healer who's...
It's depends entirely on your server. Like for for my server on Siren, we have a really good novice network. But other servers that I've been on, like let's say Ultras, it can get kind of rough. Yeah, it depends entirely on your server.
Patience is very limited and may rage quit disconnect mid-dungeon group without so much as a word to the party because you may not be as geared for the content as you thought you were. These things are to be expected in a game which hosts many different personalities, but it is also easy to forget that there's a whole different world out there where these same people in your game with you right now talking about how cute their potato is, who are ready to attack any who even so much as breathes the wrong way in Final Fantasy XIV's direction. Twitter. Twitter is it's a platform. This is a platform where nobody can agree with anything, even if two people that are arguing are saying practically the same thing, just worded differently. It's all about how you say it, when you say it, and whether you ended that sentence with a period or not, or so I've apparently learned today.
Also, Twitter's fault too.
A very toxic place to be.
Because of the 250 word words
also be Final Fantasy XIV players can
limitation.
Be just as toxic as any other user on that platform.
15,000 people going, you fucking idiot, you can't fucking read, you dumb fucking shit, you can't read the story, you played the game wrong, can't even play the fucking game right, can't play a fucking game, you fucking bitches would crumble. And now you're gonna sit in your fucking chair and give somebody shit because they didn't play the game the right way and didn't fucking enjoy it. Fuck you. The thing is, Quinn did not play Final Fantasy a way that made him enjoy the game. It happens. It happens. I don't think he deserves shit. You reap what you sow? Fuck you. Fuck you. You're enjoying the game. That's fucking great. Fuck you. Leave the guy alone.
With these things in mind, why would the community go so far as to dogpile on him in some strange bid to defend a game that needs no defending?
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there. I think one of the biggest things that are being misunderstood really is not that they're dogpiling on him because he played the game wrong. Although I think some people are doing that, but that's not really the catalyst of the whole thing. The catalyst of the whole thing is that his own take is like a opinion that seems very ill-informed. And a lot of that is because not really necessarily is that he boosted. Boosting is whatever. No one should really give a shit if someone boosts or not. It's more of the fact that there did not seem to be any sort of research involved, or anything like that. Because I said this on Twitter too, but boosting is definitely a trap in this game. You will skip the plot, but you will also skip literally everything that teaches you the game. 14 is absolutely terrible at teaching you how to play the game, but it does give you situations where you have to use the tools that you have on hand to figure out how to beat the game, more or less. Like every dungeon typically adds a different mechanic that you have to solve with the tools that you currently have, and that's how you teach yourself how to play the game. So by boosting, you skip all of that, and then you have the game throwing literally everything at you, and you're just completely confused. So that was basically Quinn's problem. He didn't have fun because he was thrown in a situation that he had no idea about, and yeah, he may have not liked the original leveling experience between A Realm Reborn, and there's an entirely different problem with that because many people, including myself, say that A Realm Reborn is basically the worst part of the game. So I would say, if someone boosted, that's totally fine. I don't really give a shit. But if you boost, you have to keep in mind that there is a lot of learning involved. So for me, the reason why I would say that Quin's opinion wouldn't really doesn't really hold any water. Well, I won't say opinion. His opinion is fine. His criticisms doesn't really hold any water is because they seem very ill-informed. The only thing that I would really get out of his opinion, out of his criticism, is that A Realm Reborn is boring, which would be the reason why that he would boost. Now, as far as like people hating on him for his opinion, that's obviously bad. But for me, I don't really care about his opinion. I care about his criticisms, and whatever I can pull out of that, I will take it. I'll take it with good value. But if I say that his criticisms are inaccurate, I'm going to say that they're inaccurate. I do feel Rich and right now this guy in the video, Onion Knight, I think. I do think that their take is a bit more on an emotional side for good reason, because Quin is getting a lot of hate and cyberbullying is a thing. So I do think going from that angle is really, really well worth it, because a lot of people do put a lot of stock in what a YouTuber or a streamer says about a game that they're invested in, which is bad. I do think the sentiment of just move on is good, but I'm also reminded of the Lazy Peon situation, who's actually a really popular YouTuber because he tries out a bunch of MMOs. And I think it was like 2 years ago. It was during Stormblood, so it had to be like around two or 3 years ago. He shat on 14, and he had a very similar situation where he said that he got bored. He got bored of A Realm Reborn, so he boosted. And then he said the story didn't make any sense. Like, well, of course the story didn't make any sense. You skipped the story. That's pretty obvious. So that criticism can't be taken because it's a complete contradiction of what his criticism is. It's a problem that he himself created because he skipped the story. And that's just an example of what he said. He said a lot of bad things, and yeah, a lot of people would say that is a bad take. And yes, the 14 community did this shit on him, and he's still not really talked about. But he is in like a lot of people's memories, which is why even I mentioned the Lazy Peon when Quin made his tweet, and then someone threw down a video of his adventure in 14. I said that it reminded me a lot of the Lazy Peon, like one to one, basically. You know what? If you have a bad take on a game, I don't really care. I think for most people, it's more of that they don't want the thing that they're invested into to be misrepresented. And I think part of that is just because they're too highly invested. I mean, 14 is fine with some criticism. I think my personal opinion is that 14 could stand to have some more pessimism. Because a lot of people praise the game to the moon, and especially now when it's at the height of its popularity, like extremely high, there's more eyeballs on it, which means there is going to be more opinions on it. A lot of people that have come from different backgrounds are going to have different takes on it. Quin definitely had a misinformed criticisms, but his opinion is still valid, and he should be bullied by that. I'll leave it at that. Let's see where the rest of this video goes.
Final Fantasy XIV has such a massive player base right now as I'm making this video. What harm does one streamer do to the game or the community that it justifies people throwing out all logic and reasoning and deciding that they want to be hateful and spiteful to someone who just doesn't want to play your gaming? Telling the guy you boosted so you ruined your experience doesn't bring him back to try that experience again. Telling the guy at least have the decency of not doing worse damage than a paladin doesn't make him a better raider at endgame. He already quit the game. So why am I talking about this today? Be honest, I don't really like Quin's content, so it's not that. I've tuned in from time to time while he played Final Fantasy, and I've seen a few streams of him in the past, but it's never really been my thing. I actually find most of what he said on Twitter to be rather fair, even if it was slightly out of touch due to his lack of experience with the game. The reason I'm upset is because I spent an entire video talking about what Final Fantasy XIV does right, and I praised the community for being very positive and being quick to stamp out negativity. This series of events made a liar out of me. Sure, I made a video talking about the toxicity from mentors and touched briefly.
Okay, you're not a liar, you're just misinformed. Like, you're not a liar, you're just misinformed. Like, anyone who is a raider in this game that has like done like a decent amount of raiding knows how toxic 14 can be. Because not because the raiders are toxic, but because we are people that care about the mechanics of the game, and we want to be better. And we would like if other people were like informed on how to be better. But 14 is full of toxic casuals, like extremely, like a lot of them, like a hell of a lot. I'm glad to see that people are starting to notice that with this situation, because I am so tired of people saying that 14 is a super awesome community that is like leagues better than any other MMO. It's just not. It really isn't. So I am glad that people are starting to see that.
On the Asmongold stuff, but I still truly felt like the community was overall a better collective of individuals than many. I'm upset because I always hear people say they encourage more people to become Final Fantasy XIV content creators, but the moment someone makes content and then decides it's not for them, the community rallies to defend the game's honor as if their words were going to mortally wound the game's reputation. Nobody wants to deal with that kind of negativity, and I don't blame them. And to the fans in the community who may not have participated in the drama, but have found a reason to justify it, why? Why are you justifying it? Why would you let this go on, but not at the very least lend your voice to say, you know what, thanks for giving it a shot. I know it's not your cup of tea, but to each their own. Why not be as vocal about your support for those who may not enjoy the game as those who absolutely go out of their way to hurl toxicity?
Because I don't care, honestly. It's not really justifying from my case. I will always say, if you have like if you throw your opinion out there and into the ether, you have to be prepared to get called out for it. Like that's just how it is. That is human nature. You cannot stop that. Even if you were just average Joe number 1 million, if you have what people will call a bad take, you will be called out for it. That's just how it is. Yes, it's a matter of thin skin versus thick skin, and yes, it would be nice if people weren't hateful, but that's not how humanity works. Let's just say 14's image is getting bursted from this situation because we do have a lot of eyes on Twitter. And Quinn is a popular streamer. And yes, people, like a lot of streamers, a lot of content creators have said the 14 community has a great community. And I am so happy that people are starting to see the ugly side of it, so that we can finally start getting some fair recognition here. If you critique something, your critique will be looked at with a critical eye. That's what it means. A critique is a critical take on something. And if you have someone with a different experience but is also more informed, it's going to start butting heads with that. So yes, I don't really care if Quinn's critiques are getting dismantled. If Quinn is getting hate or getting personal like backlash, like if people are calling him a piece of shit or something like that, obviously that's bad. I am focusing on like the objective thing of where like, okay, you boosted and and obviously boosting this game is a trap. So yes, since you're boosted, we kind of can't take your opinion, not your critique as a. I keep messing up critique and opinion. We can't take your critique as something valuable, other than that boosting this game is bad because you miss out on so much. That's just basically it. Obviously, getting hate is dumb, but that's just how humanity works, and you kind of have to deal with that, especially as a content creator. It's kind of weird when he said that, like, or that people would complain that the 14 community is being misrepresented because they're not as bad as what this situation will make them out to be. I just ranted about how it's usually viewed as the opposite, where it is not as good as people make it out to be. That is that's a very strange dilemma, and it makes things pretty ironic. But I think one of the benefits is that Quinn has more or less ejected himself from the community. Some people have gotten it way worse than him. Off the top of my head, there is a few people that many people wouldn't really know at this point. The most popular one being Scott Zone. But even like the really popular 14 streamers like Miztech has gotten shat on for a joke that she said before. And she got shat on for quite a bit. You have a person named Faros. Faros was a PvP player that got deep into PvE. And he was doing ultimate rating in pugs when that was unheard of before. And this one ultimate, he got it down to like 20%. And what ended up happening was that whenever he get into a pug, it would always be stuck at that like 20%, and it wouldn't go any further. Something would always happen, and it would mess up. And it was like that for weeks, and he was getting really frustrated. So what ended up happening was that he got offered a chance to get his ultimate run done with an experienced group, and he took it, and he ended up getting his clear. But at that point, people started saying that he got carried, or that he bought his win, because the people that helped him out was a group that actually sold runs, which means that they were really fucking good at what they did. So now they were saying that he got carried and he bought his win, and a lot of people were going to his stream and basically shitting on him. And it got to the point where he stopped streaming 14. And that was a person that actually was heavily invested. He liked the game. He liked the game a lot. He enjoyed it, and he had a community. So yeah, there is an ugly side of community, and it's more obvious than what people would say it is, or than what it's more obvious than people would expect, or it's bigger than what people would expect. It's just that it's heavily policed within the game, but outside the game, it's just like any other community.